The fundamental mistake you make when a woman ignores you is believing her silence is a problem to be solved. You see it as a void that must be filled with more words, more effort, more proof of your value. But her silence isn't empty. It's full of information. She isn't pulling away because she feels nothing. She's pulling away because your pursuit makes her feel pressured. And her intuition is telling her that a man who chases this hard must not have a world of his own that is compelling enough to hold his attention. The very act of trying to win her back is what confirms her decision to stay distant. You think you need to increase the signal, but the truth is you need to turn it off completely. The path to making her chase you begins with the radical act of becoming still, of letting that silence expand until it's her who becomes uncomfortable with it, not you. This feeling is a cold weight in your chest, isn't it? The phone in your hand feels heavier, the silence on the other end louder than any rejection. You've been there, crafting the perfect message, only to be met with nothing. That specific ache of being rendered invisible is a universal language of male pain. If this resonates with you, if you understand that we're not just talking about tactics, but about a fundamental shift in your own reality, then you're in the right place. Support this journey by subscribing to the channel, liking this video, and sharing your own experience in the comments below. Your story matters because it's a part of this larger truth we are uncovering together. We're not here to learn tricks. We're here to reclaim a sense of core masculine stillness that naturally commands respect and eventually attraction. The lie you've been sold is that your value is something you must demonstrate to her. You operate like a salesman trying to close a deal, presenting facts, benefits, and emotional appeals. You explain your intentions, you showcase your good qualities, you try to logically convince her that you are a worthy choice. But attraction doesn't operate in the realm of logic. It's a primal, subconscious response to a man's perceived trajectory. When you are desperately trying to prove yourself to her, the only thing your actions communicate is that your world is small and she is the center of it. She doesn't hear your words. She feels your need. And neediness is the absolute inverse of attraction. It's a gravitational force that pushes her away because her instincts are wired to seek a man whose universe is so vast and compelling that his validation comes from his mission, not from her attention. So the first and most critical shift is to stop seeing her as the prize. She is not the objective. Your desperate focus on her is the very source of your powerlessness. Every moment you spend analyzing her behavior, rereading old messages, or wondering what she's thinking is a moment stolen from the only thing that can actually change the dynamic. Building your own world. Her indifference isn't a judgment on your ultimate worth. It's merely feedback on your current presentation of it. It's a mirror showing you that your energy is flowing outward, seeking validation instead of inward, building value. The moment you truly understand this, the game changes. You stop trying to be the man who wins her attention and you start the work of becoming the world she is terrified to miss out on. This is where your real power lies. You see her silence and you translate it into a single devastating sentence. She lost interest. This is the first and most profound mistake, the lie that fuels every self-sabotaging action that follows. Your mind races, replaying every interaction, searching for the error. The moment you went wrong, you check your phone, not with hope, but with a kind of compulsive dread, a need to confirm the emptiness you already feel. This behavior isn't about her, it's about your ego screaming in the face of being rendered irrelevant. Her silence feels like a verdict on your worth, and you believe with every fiber of your being that you must appeal the decision. You think the problem is her fading attention, but the real problem is your frantic, desperate reaction to it. You are trying to solve a storm by shouting at the wind. This belief that you must fix her disinterest immediately leads you down a path of emotional desperation. You know this feeling, don't you? The urge to send one more text, to explain yourself just a little better, to show her a side of you she might have missed. You craft the words carefully, trying to sound casual but urgent, witty but sincere. Each word is a small hook, an attempt to snag her attention back. Psychologically, this is a desperate bid to regain control over an outcome that is no longer in your hands. You are trying to force a connection that must be effortless to be real. The emotional truth for you is that every message you send from this place of neediness doesn't build a bridge, it digs the canyon between you deeper. Proving her instinct to pull away was correct from the very beginning. Your actions are based on the fundamental illusion that more effort equals more attraction. You send that long paragraph, the one where you lay your cards on the table, asking what went wrong or explaining the depth of your feelings. You see it as an act of honest vulnerability. She sees it as a demand. You are treating attraction like a business deal, presenting arguments and evidence, hoping to convince her logically. But attraction is a primal feeling, not a conscious choice. It responds to strength, to mystery, to a man whose world is so compelling that he doesn't have time to write essays about his emotions. When you do this, you are not communicating your value, you are communicating your anxiety. And the silence that follows that message feels different, heavier, because you just gave away the last piece of your power. This obsessive focus on her slowly poisons your own reality. You felt this happen. Your mood for the entire day hinges on whether or not she viewed your story. You find it harder to concentrate on your work, on your workouts, on conversations with friends. She is occupying prime real estate in your mind, rent-free. This shift in your energy is not subtle. It is a palpable force that she can feel even from a distance. A woman's intuition is her most powerful survival tool, and it is expertly tuned to detect when a man's center of gravity is not within himself. She doesn't feel desired. She feels responsible for your emotional state. And nothing extinguishes the spark of attraction faster than the heavy burden of a man's neediness. The chase becomes a toxic, addictive cycle. The behavior is textbook. You experience the crushing low of her silence, followed by the brief, intoxicating high if she sends even a meaningless, one-word reply. This pattern, known as intermittent reinforcement, is the same mechanism that hooks gamblers to slot machines. You are no longer addicted to her, but to the unpredictable possibility of her validation. You are chasing the feeling of relief, not the person herself. This psychological trap keeps you weak, reactive, and predictable. She knows, without a doubt, that if she gives you a crumb of attention, you will come running back, and in that moment, all mystery is gone. You are no longer a man she wants to discover, but a problem she feels she has to manage. So, the lie you believe that her disinterest is the problem is what keeps you trapped. You have been playing the game all wrong. You thought the goal was to make her see your value, so you displayed it, you explained it, you begged for it to be seen, you poured all your energy outward. The hidden truth is that her disinterest was never about you lacking value. It was about you demonstrating it from a place of weakness. It was the presentation, not the product. The conclusion you must now face is that the only move that changes the entire board is the one your panic and your ego have forbidden you from making, to do nothing. To turn your focus completely and utterly away from her and back onto yourself, not as a strategy to get her back, but as a genuine act of reclaiming your own world. The hidden truth is that her silence is not a verdict on your worth, but a reaction to your presentation. A woman's intuition is her oldest and most sophisticated survival tool, finely tuned over millennia to detect one thing above all others, a man's internal center of gravity. When you chase, when you overtext, when you explain yourself, you are broadcasting a signal that your emotional stability is dependent on her response. She doesn't process this logically. She feels it as a subtle, unnerving pressure. Her retreat isn't a conscious decision to be cruel. It is an instinctive, self-protective maneuver away from a man whose world feels small and whose happiness feels like a responsibility she never agreed to carry. The emotional truth is this: she isn't rejecting you, the man. She is rejecting the needy energy you are projecting onto her. Think about her brief, delayed replies, the single word answers, the hours of silence after you've poured your thoughts into a message. You see this as disinterest. But it is often an unconscious test. She is subconsciously probing your emotional resilience by giving you nothing. She is observing what you will do with that emptiness. Will you crumble and fill it with anxious questions? Will you get angry and demand a response? Or will you simply continue on with your life, unbothered, demonstrating that your peace does not reside in her inbox? Every time you react with panic, you are failing a test you didn't even know you were taking. You are showing her that her attention is the pillar holding up your emotional world, and the silent conclusion she reaches is that a man so easily shaken is not a safe harbor in a storm. This all comes down to a fundamental principle of attraction, polarity. A woman is not drawn to a man she can control. She is drawn to a man whose presence organizes her own chaotic emotional energy into a sense of calm and safety. When you make her the sole focus of your pursuit, you are placing your world at her feet and asking her to be the sun you orbit. This inverts the natural, attractive polarity. You become the chaos, and she is forced into the masculine role of being the stable center. This feels deeply unattractive and burdensome to her. She doesn't want to be your mission. She wants to be a welcome and cherished guest in the unshakable world your mission has already built. You've been asking her to provide the certainty when she is instinctively looking for a man who embodies it. The tension you feel comes from the belief that you must maintain contact to stay on her mind. The inversion is that the most powerful way to occupy her thoughts is to completely remove your presence. The hidden truth is that a woman cannot feel the true weight of your presence until she is forced to confront the stark reality of your absence. This is not about playing games. It is about understanding the basic law of perceived value. We cherish what is scarce and dismiss what is endlessly abundant. Your constant availability, your immediate replies, your relentless pursuit, these things make you emotionally commonplace. By withdrawing your energy, you create a vacuum, and it is in that silent, empty space that her mind will finally begin to wonder, to question, and to reevaluate the comfort your presence once provided. Let's be honest. You've seen this happen before. She was interested at first. There was a spark, a connection. She saw the man you are when you are centered, when your life is full, when your attention is a gift, not a plea. But then something shifted. Your focus narrowed, and she became the prize. The confident man she met was slowly replaced by an anxious applicant, seeking her approval at every turn. She didn't lose interest in the man she was initially drawn to. She lost interest in the man you became in her presence. She is ignoring the supplicant in the desperate hope that the king might return. She is pulling away from the very behavior you mistakenly believe will bring her closer, waiting to see if you remember who you were before you decided she was your everything. A woman is never just attracted to who you are in this moment. She is profoundly attracted to your trajectory. Her subconscious is constantly asking one critical question. Where is this man going? When you are chasing her, your trajectory is a straight line aimed directly at her. It communicates that your personal journey of growth, ambition, and purpose has stalled, and she has become the final destination. This is immense pressure. A man who is on his purpose, however, has a trajectory that points upward and onward toward a vision that is larger than any single relationship. This is magnetic. She doesn't want to be the reason your journey ends. She wants the exhilarating opportunity to join a man whose incredible journey is already well underway. Consider her indifference, then, not as an insult, but as an unconscious, highly effective filter. It is a natural mechanism designed to separate the men whose sense of self is externally validated from those whose value is internally generated. It's not personal, it's primal. It efficiently weeds out the men who would become an emotional drain, who lack the internal fortitude to stand on their own. The man who panics at her silence proves he is not a rock. The man who gets angry proves he is not in control. But the man who doesn't even seem to notice her absence, because he is so deeply engaged in building his own empire, his business, his body, his mind, is the one who passes this silent, powerful test. He demonstrates through action that he is the source of his own world. And so you begin to see the problem was never her behavior, but your flawed interpretation of it. You saw her distance as a wall to be broken down, when it was actually an open space inviting you to grow. You don't capture a woman's heart by chasing it. You attract it by becoming so rooted in your own purpose that your stillness becomes a gravitational force. Her silence ceases to be a weapon against you and becomes a canvas for you. It is the quiet you need to hear your own ambition again. The moment this clicks, the entire dynamic shifts. You stop being the performer trying to win her applause and become the architect of a world so compelling that she asks for a ticket to see it. So what does the man who understands this do differently? His first move is the most radical one of all. He does nothing. He sees her name light up his screen after days of silence, and instead of his heart leaping into his throat with a desperate mix of relief and anxiety, he feels a quiet stillness. He puts the phone down. He finishes his set at the gym. He completes the paragraph he was writing. He stays present in the conversation he is having. This isn't a game of calculated waiting. It is a declaration of his reality. His world does not pause for her. His focus is a sacred resource, and by refusing to let her notification derail it, he communicates without a single word that his attention is earned, not given away freely. The emotional truth is a profound sense of peace. He has just reclaimed his nervous system from her control. He redirects the anxious, frantic energy that the average man wastes on rereading old texts and crafting new ones. He channels it like a river, turning the raw force of his frustration into fuel for his own evolution. Instead of fighting her silence, he uses it. He lets the quiet in his phone create the space he needs to hear the call of his own ambitions again. He feels the burn in his muscles during a workout and understands that this pain is real, productive, and entirely within his control, unlike the phantom ache of her indifference. This is the embodiment of non-resistance. You don't attract by chasing. You attract by becoming so still, so rooted in your own purpose, that your presence alone becomes a magnetic force. He is no longer reacting to her world. He is building his own gravitational field. The centered man understands that his mind is the only territory he truly controls, and he guards it fiercely. When a thought of her drifts into his consciousness, wondering what she's doing, who she's with, he doesn't suppress it or judge it. He simply observes it like a cloud passing in the sky, and then gently but firmly returns his focus to the task at hand. Quiet, internal discipline, practiced 100 times a day. He is evicting her from the prime real estate of his mind, not out of anger, but out of a deep respect for his own mental clarity. This constant, gentle redirection of focus starves the obsession. It drains the power from her absence until her silence is no longer a deafening roar, but a faint, distant echo in a world filled with the sound of his own life being built. When and if he chooses to communicate again, the entire frame has shifted. His message is not a question seeking validation, but an invitation into a life already in motion. He doesn't ask, "Hey, want to do something this weekend?" which places the burden of planning and decision on her. Instead, he states his reality. "I'm going to this art exhibit on Saturday afternoon. Feel free to join if you'd like." Notice the difference. The event is happening regardless of her response. He is the director of his own life, and he is merely offering her a ticket. He feels no anxiety after sending it because his enjoyment is not contingent on her presence. This is the posture of a man whose cup is already full. He is offering to share his world, not asking her to complete it. He then commits the ultimate act of detachment. He starves his addiction to information. He stops checking her social media. He mutes her stories. This isn't a dramatic reactive gesture like blocking her, that would still be an emotional response to her power. This is a quiet, strategic choice to curate his own peace. He understands that every glimpse into her life is a small dose of the poison that distracts him from his own. He is consciously creating an information vacuum, forcing his brain to break the addictive cycle of intermittent reinforcement. It's the philosophy of the open hand. You cannot hold water by grasping at it. The tighter you squeeze, the more you lose. By letting go completely, he creates the very space required for her to feel the true weight of his absence. Ultimately, this internal transformation becomes an external reality that people can feel. His friends notice it first. There's a new calm in his eyes, a solidity in his presence. He walks with a purpose that wasn't there before. He is no longer leaking his vital energy into the black hole of her indifference. He has redirected all of that power back into himself. It radiates from him not as arrogance, but as a deep, unshakable centeredness. He has become the man she was initially attracted to, but on a level he hadn't yet reached. And in this state, he realizes the profound truth. The goal was never to make her chase. The goal was to build a life so magnificent that he would be unwilling to compromise it for anyone. Her attention, if it returns, is no longer the prize. It is simply a byproduct of his own victory. And so, the storm finally breaks. You see now that the entire frantic effort to make her chase you was a profound misunderstanding of power. The goal was never to capture her attention, but to command your own. Her return, if it comes, is not the victory. The victory is the quiet hum of your own world turning. A world so dense with purpose and peace that her presence becomes a welcome addition, not a desperate necessity. The chase ends the moment you realize you are the destination. She can either join you on your journey or watch you from a distance, but your trajectory is no longer determined by her gaze. This is the final liberation. You stop trying to be the man who wins her attention, and you simply become the world she is terrified to miss out on. The battle was never with her. It was with the needy man inside you who believed her validation was his oxygen. Now you can finally understand the paradox that brought you here. She pulls away not because she feels nothing, but because she feels too much. Before, you thought she felt too much attraction, too much fear of intimacy. Now you see the devastating truth. She felt too much of your instability. She felt the tremors of your need, the chaotic energy of a man whose emotional center was located inside her phone. Her intuition, that ancient and perfect survival mechanism, recognized that your world was a storm, and she instinctively sought higher ground. Her silence wasn't a punishment, it was a natural consequence. She was not rejecting a king, she was stepping away from the chaos he was projecting. And in seeing this, all resentment dissolves, replaced by a quiet, unshakable responsibility for the energy you put out into the world. This understanding is where the game finally ends, because you are no longer a player. You are the board itself. A man who is truly centered does not need to explain his value, debate his intentions, or prove his worth. His presence is the explanation. His actions are the argument. He embodies the very stability she was subconsciously seeking. She doesn't want your long paragraphs explaining your feelings. She wants to feel the unshakable calm of your presence. She doesn't want your promises of a future. She wants to see the empire you are building in your present. The man who has mastered himself communicates everything he needs to with his silence. It is a silence that is not empty, but full of his purpose, his discipline, and the deep, resonant peace of a man who is whole, with or without her. The true victory, then, is not the message from her that finally arrives. It is the moment you realize you would be perfectly fine if it never did. It is the feeling of putting your phone down and turning your attention back to your work, your body, your mission, without a single pang of anxiety. This is the shift from seeking validation to embodying value. You have become the source. Your life is no longer a question mark waiting for her answer, but a definitive statement of who you are and where you are going. Everything you once sought from her, a sense of worth, of excitement, of being enough, you now provide for yourself. So look back now at her silence, at her distance, through this new lens of clarity. Comment what you now see in her and in yourself that you couldn't before.